All right, everyone, it's your boy Fernie here with an all new playlist here for my channel that I call Cryptids, Ghosts, and UFOs Podcast. So, yes, indeed, this will be a series of podcasts, not necessarily videos, but again, just podcasts dedicated to various subject matters involving the world of cryptids, ghosts, and UFOs, and maybe even other stuff as well. I've thought about doing this for a while, so I decided to finally go ahead and talk about it here. It'll give a very good chance to revisit some of the other items that I've talked about in the past and new ones here, and then that way give more detailed information along the lines. But again, it's a strict podcast format, nothing in terms of actual images or videos or clips or anything like that, mainly just my voice and then whatever you see in terms of the banner image here. I may actually incorporate some clips involving audio. Maybe if I go visit a haunted location and then talk about that subject matter within a video and then give some presentations on EVPs and so on. So for this first one, I thought I would do one of my favorite subject matters involving a location that I visited in the past. For this inaugural video, let's go ahead and let's talk about Fort Concho. So again, this is a location I visited in the past, one that I've actually been to several times. So I thought, what a great way to showcase a lot of great information here about it, and then finally wrap up with some final thoughts, some my own commentary associated with it. So let me go ahead and let's start this podcast here. Let me know what you guys and gals think with regards to this. Do you want me to do some more videos, more podcasts related to this playlist? Post it in the comments below. All right, so again, for this particular podcast, it is Fort Concho. Now, what is Fort Concho? Well, it's actually a fort that is there located in San Angelo, Texas, considered part of the National Historic Landmark District. If you wanted to know the exact address associated with it as well, it is 630 South Oak Street, San Angelo, Texas, 76903. As far as the history associated with it, let's go ahead and let's talk about that here first. Now, for starters, this is a very, very old fort. In fact, it was pretty much just established during the American colonization of Texas back in the 19th century. It was basically formed out of necessity. Sometime around the mid-1800s, that's when American colonists began actually crossing westward. They were either heading to California or other locations that had gold discovered there. And so out of a form of necessity, in order to protect those citizens, especially from anything involving roving bands of thieves or maybe other forms of people, settlers, and so on, maybe even some Native Americans that were in and around the area as well, the United States Army actually ordered the construction of a bunch of forts along certain routes to make sure that anyone traveling westward would be protected. And thus, Fort Concho was essentially born out of this necessity. In fact, if you wanted to consider the actual birth year of the fort itself, it was somewhere around 1867 that the construction began for it. Unfortunately, though, progress was pretty slow, mainly because of all the materials that had to be shipped in towards that remote area. Along with that, some of the other officers there were bickering amongst each other, and that delayed things even further. But eventually, the fort was able to be finalized. And once it was finalized, it remained in operation for around 22 years, which is a good time period with regards to its actual history, its actual location, staying there and successfully protecting those that came across that location to make sure that they were able to get to another location afterward, doing so again for a little over 2 decades. In fact, I believe the name associated with it, Fort Concho, comes from the strategic location associated with the fort. It was actually built near the Concho River, and that way they would have a steady stream of water along with easy access to that water, and essentially that's where the name came from. Notable names associated with the fort included Captain David W. Porter, who was assistant quartermaster of the Department of Texas. He was the personnel first assigned with constructing Fort Concho back on December 10th, 1867. Eventually, though, because of delays, he was replaced by another personnel, a gentleman by the name of Major George C. Cram, who in turn also kind of had a little bit of delays here and there. And so because of it, he was eventually replaced or reassigned, and more construction was then handed over to another personnel, someone by the name of Captain Joseph Rendlebrook, who was the 4th Cavalry's quartermaster, and he in turn was able to complete several notable buildings with the fort, including the commissary, the quartermaster's storehouse, and then also a wing of the hospital that's located there on the fort. More construction eventually occurred, and so much so that by August 1869, there were several military structures there on the fort, including 5 of the officers' residences, and then also the 1st Regimental Barracks. And then moving into 1870 up to 1871, there were more construction done, including 2 more officers' residences, more barracks, a permanent guardhouse, and then also a set of stables. But construction still continued, and eventually there were now 4 barracks, 8 officers' residences, the actual hospital, a bakery, several storehouses, workshops, and then even more stables there. And then another couple of years later, in 1875, there was a parade ground that was constructed there along with a flagstaff. If you ever go there to Fort Concho, it's the most prominent thing within the entire area is the very, very large parade ground that's there. More officers' residences were then built going into 1877, along with the headquarters building being built as well. In fact, if you wanted to say when everything was finalized, you could actually go towards about 1889. By that point, there were around 39 permanent buildings there within the fort, and it came at a total cost of $1 million to the U.S. Army, which, if you wanted to adjust it for inflation, was about $30 million in today's dollars. But that's it. That's most of the notable history associated with the beautiful fort. In fact, if you go there to this day, you can see the historical marker detailing more of the service life associated with the fort. You can see a lot of the buildings there as they kind of would have looked like from back then. Obviously, a lot of things are reconstructed, and then others are pretty much left as is. You can see so much of living history right there. You can go there during most days of the week, except on certain holidays and other type of items that happen that cause it to close down. And you can take regular tours there, whether it's a guided tour or you can just do your own walking tour as well. When I've been there to Fort Concho, I was actually there and I did my own tour. It's basically at your own leisure. You can visit every building pretty much as is during the daytime. Whenever it's open office hours, most of those locations will have their doors open. It's absolutely beautiful to go see this living history there. Words cannot describe it in person, what you'll see whenever you actually visit it for the very first time. You'll be able to see all those buildings one by one, spend as long as needed. You'll be able to also read all the information. Every building has some kind of hallmark within them. So they'll have either artifacts or they'll have clothing, they'll have bedroom sets. I do recall also seeing lots of furniture, paintings, pictures as well, displays, lots of interesting facts associated with each one as well, either on print, like hanging in some sort of wall, or stuff that you can look up on your own online afterward. You can truly spend a good amount of your day during regular open office hours there in Fort Concho, just traveling about, and then you'll be able to enjoy all that wonderful history that was associated with some of the earliest settlers' times there in Texas. Again, highly recommended if you wanted a chance to go see this, to go visit Fort Concho, at least during the daytime, and enjoy that living history. Highly recommend doing so. Interesting that it was pretty much only in operation for about 22 years, but even to this day, it remains a pretty prevalent form of history within Texas. One last set of notes associated with its history. Unfortunately, though, the fort was abandoned sometime in June 1889, and for around the next 20 years or so, it just basically became a set of either personal residences or also businesses as well. Throughout the 1900s, there were some efforts to try to make sure that at least the fort could have some form of either preservation or restoration, and it took a Fort Concho museum, a foundation of it in 1929, to almost get things started. And then that's when in 1935 the city of San Angelo basically owned and operated this fort henceforth. And then in 1961 it was named a part of the National Historic Landmark, which caused it to essentially have its history as of today beautifully rebuilt, beautifully preserved, and to this day it's about 40, it still encompasses the original 40 acres and has about 23 buildings from what it was from before. And in fact, some of these are still some of the oldest ones in San Angelo. And that this was interesting for me to find out. Even to this very day, about 55,000 people still visit this fort annually, every single year. So a good amount of people still have some interest within it, and then they're able to see its living history, as I just mentioned. Now, where I first learned about Fort Concho was actually during some trips. I was planning some trips early on to go see some famous historic haunted locations throughout Texas. And one of the first things I looked at was the history associated with Fort Concho. So I thought to myself, let me go ahead and I'll use this location, this wonderful location, as one of my earliest travels to be able to go see the history, but also try to experience the ghosts that are associated with this location. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's talk about those ghosts here. And I'll give my own experiences during my own trips as well. And then I'll see what you guys and gals think with your comments afterwards. Now, what's interesting about these ghosts is that while they're there in Fort Concho, they also seem to be specifically tied to certain locations within the fort. Meaning, if you go to one building, you may experience certain ghosts there. And then if you go to a building either next to it or across from it or something along those lines, then you'll actually experience a different set of ghosts. It's unknown why the ghosts seem to essentially stay within certain spots, but that just seems to be the actual history associated with these ghosts. Now let's talk about the actual ghosts themselves and the locations where you can find them. Now, one of the most famous actual ghosts there located at Fort Concho is also one of the most tragic ones there. This is the ghost of Edith, also known as Edie, and she is found there on Officers' Quarters number 1. This is the actual location too where you'll stay if you ever do an overnight stay there at Fort Concho. Yes, you can actually stay overnight at the fort. Just inquire either online or call them over the phone. They'll be able to mention what the rates are for doing so. But not only can you take daytime tours there in Fort Concho and experience again all that living history during the daytime, but at night, whenever you actually stay overnight, you stay within that Officers' Quarters 1, and then you're also able to frequent the entire location at nighttime. And again, who knows, you may experience some of the ghosts that I'm mentioning here. But yes, Edie is by far the most tragic ghost there located within the fort. This is because she actually and tragically passed away within that home due to an illness associated with typhoid fever. And what makes it very, very tragic was the fact that she was just 13 years old at the time. And so when you visit Officers' Quarters 1, you'll notice that it's a 2-story house. I don't know exactly how, like if it looks exactly like how it did back then, but again, it's been beautifully restored, beautifully preserved. It'll give you an idea of what it could have looked like from back then. But if you go over to the second floor, her bedroom is located there as well. You'll see 2 bedrooms, one on the left, one on the right, And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's the one on the right, that's where Edith or Edie called home for herself there. But again, unfortunately, she tragically ended up dying because of that typhoid fever there, and her ghost is still said to reside within that house itself. Whenever you go visit the house, there's been experiences of people stating that they can either hear her, often upstairs, either running about, or what sounds like the footsteps of a child playing something upstairs. In fact, it's been said that you can actually almost see or maybe even hear her play her favorite game of jacks. This was her favorite game to do so back then when she was there at the home. And so she'd be there on the actual floor itself, visiting it even to this very day in some form of ghostly apparition of some sort. It's been said, though, that Edith or Edie is very, very nice. In fact, she is often seen smiling to anyone that happens to catch her there within the actual home itself, whether it's on the first floor or the second floor. And all she's doing is, again, playing either a game of jacks or just being there within the second floor. And again, in a very, very nice mode. But her apparition has also been seen standing over towards the top of a staircase that's located there going into the second floor. And often she's seen wearing what's considered a long peach-colored dress. You can also hear her giggling sometimes in the background. And I mentioned earlier some footsteps, like you can hear her playing around either upstairs or maybe in other cases running up and down the staircase of itself. But that's the most famous ghost that's associated there within the fort. And it has to do with poor young Edie, who still frequents that home even to this very day. She was there at that home as well because she was the daughter of Colonel Benjamin Grierson, who was also located at that home during his time there at the fort itself. As far as my own experiences there at the officers' quarters, I've been there both by myself and also with a ghost hunting group. We have not seen too much evidence associated with Edith or Edie there within the home. We did have one time, though, where we were videoing on the second floor, again, what we believed was her actual home, which was her room. And almost on command, when we asked if one of the closet doors, this was a closet that's actually a standalone closet, so it's not built into the wall. Instead, it's an actual furniture, like it's a closed door closet. We had asked Edie if she could actually open the door itself, and almost on command, it did so. And so that was quite fascinating to do so, to be able to see this in person, as again, almost on command, asking Edie to do this. And then on another occasion, we opened up another closet door, and what looked like little tiny feet imprints were there, like almost the feet of a small child, and they were there within the dust associated at the bottom of this closet. You could make out those imprints of those tiny feet, and so we think those were from Edith or Edie as well. So those are, again, some of the experiences there within officers' quarters number 1, which is the main building that you'll be staying at if you ever do an overnight stay there at the fort. Now, another famous ghost that's located there at the fort is a gentleman by the name of Colonel Ronald Bad Hand Mackenzie. He was someone there that was stationed at the fort. He was the commanding officer of the 4th Cavalry that was there. He was someone that stayed there for a little bit of time period as well, and even commanded several battles there, along with some of his men who became known as Mackenzie's Raiders, and led them to 2 victories during a war that was known as the Red River War. But eventually he ended up passing away, and after that time period, it's said that his ghost is still haunting the very same grounds of that fort to this very day. Where he's located at is officers' quarters number 3. I can't recall if this was a building that I visited when I was staying there either by myself or with the group, because I think it's the only one that it wasn't open either during the daytime, and the buildings are not open at night. You can still walk around the buildings at night, but you just can't see them like you would during the daytime. But even then, I think officers' quarters number 3 was one that wasn't open, but this was the one that he resided in when he wasn't away on his actual campaigns or travels. So he was staying there at that location. It's been said that you know his presence is around because not only do you hear him actually crack his knuckles, something that he was fond of doing when he was living there at Fort Concho, but you can also hear him stomping around that location as well. You can hear his boot steps whenever he is nearby. And on top of that, he's one of the few ghosts that you can actually see if you happen to catch him at the right time. Apparently there, he's looking out of a window in officers' quarters number 3, either looking outwards towards a certain area or looking directly at you if you happen to go visit that spot at just the very right time where he happens to be within that building, just basically haunting it to this very day. So this is the other ghost that is the second most famous one there associated with Fort Concho. Now there is a ghost there as well who is also haunting that location. His name is James Cunningham. He was the second sergeant that was there within that fort. If you could consider one of the ghosts to be one of the more negative ones, this would be him. This is because of the fact that he does not like women. In fact, if you wanted to know his residence, it is said that he frequents the location known as the old headquarters building, which I believe is still there up towards the very center of the Fort Concho, which forms a U. So almost like if the shape of a U, like the letter U, if you go to the top of the U, that's essentially where the actual headquarters would be. But it's been said that that's where he frequents, and he does not like having women around that building. It is unknown why he doesn't have why he has these feelings towards women in such a negative manner. But again, if you go by that building, if you near it and you happen to be a woman, then that's when he said he starts to make his presence known. Now, I haven't heard of anything truly negative, like in terms of him doing anything bad, like pulling someone's hair or scratching someone. It's just been said that you just feel a sense of negativity the nearer you get to that building, and especially if you're able to enter it, presumably during the daytime, whenever the actual building is open, during open office hours, then that's when he makes his presence known, associated to women. Now, we have had us as a ghost group try to visit that location during the nighttime. I think I have been there before during the daytime as well, whenever it was open during regular office hours. I didn't experience anything myself, but again, I'm a man. I didn't have anybody with me that was a woman at that time, but several members of my ghost hunting group are women, and we were able to at least visit the outside of that location. Again, during the nighttime, we were traveling about there during the ghost hunt, and they did not experience anything negative on their end. We did try asking if Second Sergeant James Cunningham could come out or make his presence known, something along those lines, but no, he did not do anything, at least towards us during that time period. The closest that I could recall was one of our members stating that for just a microsecond, something like a half second at most, they saw something sprint pretty quickly, almost like a dark shadow, from within one of the closed rooms there of the old headquarters. They saw it go by very, very quickly. But that was it. There was nobody inside that location because it was closed. There shouldn't be anybody inside, at least. But they saw something like a shadow move very, very quickly. And we believe that it could be Second Sergeant James Cunningham making some of his presence known as much as possible there. One last bit of history associated with Second Sergeant James Cunningham is the fact that he remains one of the only officer or the only personnel to actually have died there, the only soldier to ever have died at Fort Concho. This could explain why he may actually be lingering there within that fort, particularly again within that old headquarters. He actually ended up dying from a liver disease because he was a chronic alcoholic throughout most of his life. So again, that's just some last bit of history associated with Second Sergeant James Cunningham. Now, another ghost that's located there, this one is, if you could name a ghost that haunts various locations within the fort, it's this gentleman here. His name is George Dunbar. He was the chaplain associated with Fort Concho during that time there. He was there on a more religious note to all the families that stayed there. He was their chaplain essentially. And he also had his own family there as well. He had a wife and then also 6 children. Tragically, though, George Dunbar ended up passing away not at Fort Concho, but at a different fort. He had told his family that he would return soon because he was ordered to go there along with some other troops, but ended up passing away defending that hill during a siege. So because of this, it's said that his ghost actually haunts that location, but various spots there at Fort Concho, because he's still there trying to either come back to the fort as he promised his family, or trying to watch over his family that was there after he had passed away, not knowing after all these years, of course, that as a ghost his family is no longer there, but he still visits it to this very day to be able to try to catch them there. It's been said that his spirit has various spots there at the fort, including either the schoolhouse, maybe even the chapel, and then also throughout other parts of the fort itself. He's been known to be most communicative as well, because you can hear his disembodied voice echoing throughout multiple parts of the fort itself. Now, myself and some of the other members of the ghost hunting group, I don't recall us ever hearing any kind of voices that were there, nothing essentially from a male as well. But if we did, we would then ascertain that it could be from him. It could be from George Dunbar still trying to come back to his family even after all of these years. Lastly, some final ghosts that are seen or heard throughout the actual fort itself. There's an unidentified officer's wife who has also been known to visit the post chapel. She's either seen or heard throughout that location. Also, people can see soldiers walking about the actual parade grounds. You can also hear horses throughout the parade grounds as well. And then on the barracks, people have heard or seen soldiers walking about, especially the barracks. If you visit that, you'll notice that there's a very, very long pathway outside of each barrack, as the pathway essentially encompasses the barracks themselves. But you can see or hear the footsteps associated with the soldiers there, and then also some strange lights. People can also see these lights come about throughout the nighttime there. Maybe they were reminiscent of past parades, maybe they were something else, but those are some of the other ghosts that people actually hear or see within Fort Concho. But that's pretty much it. That's everything that you could experience if you go to Fort Concho to this very day, whether you go during the daytime involving actual daytime tours or guided tours there, or if you actually stay overnight, you can then try to experience all this on your own, or maybe in a group like I do on my end with my own ghost hunting group. And who knows, you may be able to see or hear some of these ghostly experiences. Some final thoughts associated with Fort Concho. I've been there a few times, either by myself or again with my ghost hunting group. On the paranormal side, it absolutely does live up to its haunted experiences. From us seeing the closet door open almost on command by Edith or Edie, and then also seeing those little footprints there associated, we believe, with her as well, and then also seeing a shadow person move very, very quickly within one of the buildings, the old headquarters there. But otherwise, if you visit it and you wanted to experience it yourself, we highly recommend doing so. The process to be able to stay overnight is, again, pretty easy. You can do so online by visiting the Fort Concho website. I'll include the link for it below, or by calling Fort Concho directly and then speaking with one of the very nice personnel there. I've had some great experiences there from everyone that works there as well. And also, if you go visit during the daytime, by all means, please go visit the visitor center, because there you'll see a very lovely gift shop, some nice little trinkets that are associated with the fort. Very original stuff, very amazing stuff too. And that's it, everyone. Fort Concho, again, located there in San Angelo, Texas. An absolutely beautiful and amazing location to go visit, either for a historical trip or for a ghostly overnight stay. Those of you that do end up visiting this location, let me know what you experienced. Let me know what you saw within the comments below. Again, you'll see all the information, all the links associated with this location as well, just below. And that's pretty much it. All right, everyone. Thanks again as always. Take care.